Great to start off today's press conference by saying, you look back on Saturday's event and you find a lot of positives, and especially in a lot of areas that have been a great concern of ours, not only last season but in seasons before. We seem to establish a level of performance at offensive guard, I think, that is really indicative of how far we've come in the program. Really, really excellent play by our offensive front. Terrence Carey at right guard and Skyler at left guard. Those guys really played better than we have played at those positions in the past. I know they've got a lot of improvement to make, but it was great to have them help us unearth a notion of a running game, and that notion of a running game will improve to something more substantial as time goes by.
Coach, just tell me a little bit about just what your thoughts were on the game itself, execution, 3 turnovers.
Well, I thought a couple things. Number one, Justin Arias played like he had been a starter, and he handled himself with tremendous confidence and levelness that makes him play in that position, makes us feel pretty confident about how he's going to play. I thought Cam Richmond and Luke Austin stamped their presence on that game right away. Great to see Tyler Wright and Josh Cook get into the flow, and of course Chad Hansen, a wide receiver. 5 guys were touching the ball and got going. And then later on in the game, we started really putting our running backs into the flow of the pass offense, and that gives us 8 different guys caught passes in the game. We need to play a lot more of our depth at receiver so that we don't get so tired since we're going hyper fast. And then, of course, defensively, we had a great rotation in our defensive front, and not just a rotation, but a performance rotation, because I thought David played very well. Austin Graves was simply outstanding, and Tyler Cooter was a tremendous presence. Yet a lot of the other guys that went in, James Berggren, Kimo McCullough, they went in and had good moments. So we're going to play a lot more guys, and that makes me feel probably the best. The one thing that happened to us, though, in the third quarter, we lost our mojo there just a little bit, and this thing started kind of creep back into something kind of ugly, and so we kept our good guys out there for the rest of the stretch, and then to end the game with a long drive that ended up in a field goal, of course, was pretty darn rewarding. But a good game and a lot of fun.
Mike, how did your offensive line grade out to you Saturday? Because that's always a concern. Your quarterback has to have the time.
Well, compared to where we have played in the past, much better. Compared to what our standards are, a little less than average. We want to play a little bit better than that. We made some alignment mistakes in offensive line. We made initial footwork and handwork placement mistakes that we have to get cleaned up down the road. But I want to give Dixie State credit. They had a 330-pounder and a couple 305-pounders in the middle. Their defensive interior front that's a Big Sky caliber front, better than most of the Big Sky teams, because in the Big Sky there's no such thing as a 300-pounder that can really push the pocket. There is not. And it was good for us to line up against those guys and acquit ourselves very well, especially with our young guards. So overall, not bad, Mark. Really, as an ISU head coach, great. As a head coach that's been around a lot of really good offensive line, okay.
Coach, we've talked about this before, but the depth, I guess specifically in your offensive line, Nick Beckman Jim Bagley had to go out for a while, and Colin Pressicenter came in, who started a whole bunch last year. Just talk about the depth you have that maybe you haven't had the last couple of years.
Well, it's pretty cool for us. Travis Almahala is our backup center right now, and he started 10 games. Colin Pressicenter is a backup left tackle, and he started 11 games last season. Wes Wingrove has started a lot. He can slide over and move to a bunch of different spots. And Christian Dean, in the middle of his redshirt sophomore season, is certainly ready to go right now. So for the first time, we're getting closer to where we need to be in our depth. We're not there yet.
Tell me what you saw out of Brandon Golden. He got in there and made some good plays there, especially in the second half. He's coming along, right? Between
Brandon Golden and Vi Pecco, a couple of transfers. Both guys are going to really give us good balance and depth at corner to be able to spell Johnny Davidson and Cameron Gupton. He played okay. He's very rusty, extremely rusty. And he'll make some plays. He doesn't really know quite how to play on every play all the time. And he wasn't a career 5-game or 10-game starter at Washington State. So he's really playing his initial college football right now as we try to get him going in his junior season.
Coach, you talked about last week starting strong with a statement with little words and ending in November. So I guess you wouldn't say this is a huge step, maybe a small step. Would you say that's accurate?
I'd say it's an appropriate step. I'm saying it. I'd say it was a needed step because for us defensively to go out and play against Air, let alone Dixie State, let alone anybody, and acquit ourselves the way we did last Saturday, was a marked improvement. And I think you saw some ferociousness and speed and closing ability that our defense needs to display to help us get over the absolute tragedy that we will always refer to 2012 as defensively.
Mike, what was it like in the locker room after the game, breaking that losing streak?
Our guys are pretty emotional about it. You know, we've got some now long-term guys that have been in this program through a lot of hell and havoc. Mitch Beckstead comes to mind, and he was pretty emotional. Mitch has played offense for us and played linebacker for us now. He's been on both sides of the ball. He's done a lot of things in this program, and he's only a junior. But he sometimes seems like an old man to me in the program because as we continue to rise ourselves, the guys that have suffered the most in the past are still involved, and they can be the catalyst for the success. And a guy like Mitch Beckstead and the way he felt during the game and how he felt after the game is real indicative of how emotionally invested we are as a team into making sure that 2013 is able to be the rise.
You mentioned in the Saturday post-game press conference that you got after Mitch a little bit for celebrating a tackle in the fourth quarter. From my perspective, it seems like you have a tough job balancing keeping your guys, somewhat humble, motivated, focused on the next game, but at the same time keeping their spirits up, letting them enjoy, a win, the first win in quite a little while. So, what's your strategy, I guess, to balance that?
Well, it's very simple. The more success you have, the more chances you're going to have to think you need to enjoy that success. But it's actually inverse. The more success you have, the less you need to celebrate it because it's going to happen again. I don't like a guy in the fourth quarter, even in the first quarter, stand up from a single tackle on a single play and draw attention to himself ever. I hate that, and our guys will not play like that, and I will get that out of our guys. They will enjoy playing, but they will turn and face their teammates and celebrate with their teammates and get lined back up instead of drawing away from the tackle and throwing your chest out and your arms back. And they've played too much Madden. They've played too much video games. They're trying to mimic something they don't need to mimic. They need to be humble and get ready to go on the next play, period.
Coach, speaking of guys, you talked about old men earlier. Seems like Mitch Beckstead's been around a while. How about Cam? He had that rough first year where he was out with that ankle injury.
James Harden?
Yes.
He looks like James Harden's going to go
with the beard, yeah.
Long enough like James Harden. Yeah.
Talk about his approach to the game and practice.
Well, Cam's just an every down, every minute player. He's got a big tank, and he spills it on every play. And that's how he was able to play so fast and so well for so long on Saturday, except that we also saw when he got gassed, in 3 consecutive plays, he had 3 consecutive touches, and on the third one, he just staggered and fell down. Nobody actually tackled him. So again, he's got to work on his conditioning. He's got to work on his mental toughness. Drives that start at the 80 yards away are going to require a lot of effort and energy all the way into the end zone, and we're going to do it a bunch of times. So we've got to be able to finish drives by being as exultant and carry ourselves in a way that allows us to get into the end zone. And Cam ran out a little gas on a couple drives, so we're working on his conditioning this week.
How about his leadership? He's one of 2 seniors on the offense.
He's a perfect kind of leader. He just does it and doesn't talk about it. Leadership is not words. Leadership is deeds. Maybe the best baseball manager in all of pro baseball history, Dick Williams of the Oakland Athletics, said that leadership's a 3-run homer. So to me, leadership is making plays. You'd have to call from last year's team. You'd always have to call Rod Rumble a great leader, and Josh Hill a great leader, Kevin Yost a great leader, because those guys were always producing as players, and that's what leadership to us is.
You just brought up those 2 words you didn't want to talk about last year.
I'm trying not to string it together. Jeff. Thanks.
So you string it together using Saturday to string together to this Saturday. How do you do that to get them to keep concentrating on going forward?
No, I sometimes liken this season to building a quality piece of furniture. We haven't even started sanding yet. We're still putting the pieces together. We're still fitting the parts. We're still trying to figure out how it's going to attach and look off of the plans that we made in the spring. So whether it's a dresser or a chest of drawers. I don't know what it is, but it's going to be something beautiful by the time we get done. We're a long ways from putting the polyurethane on this season. So right now we're still in the construction phase, and that's the step we're going to take. We're building the drawers this week, and we'll see if we can slide them in and if they'll work.
So interchangeable parts. Who are you trying to figure out who's
Yeah,
there?
trying to find out what parts need to be fixed and what parts need to be fixed in a different way.
Mike, tell us about Western State.
Western State's a football team a lot like us. A couple years ago, they started all over again. They still haven't found their footing. They didn't play exceptionally well on Saturday against a very good Texas A&M, West Texas A&M ball club that looks very, very impressive on videotape. The game was not competitive early. They kept playing hard, though, and scored some touchdowns late to make the score feel like it was a closer game. I believe that they will look at this as an opportunity to unveil their season. And so we'll be very, very careful of what they try to do to us. A spread team, spread the ball all over the place. They don't throw quite as much as, say, Dixie State does. I don't think they have the same quarterback caliber that Dixie State has. But they do some things in the run game, which are going to be great for us to see out of 2 back and 2 tight ends that we haven't really seen a lot of. And so that's given us a cause for concern. Defensively, they're very similar to us, which is great for our offensive preparation. And, of course, we have 2 guys unavailable for this week, and with Luke Austin and Nick Beckman, they'll just be unavailable indefinitely. And so we'll have to make sure we make some adjustments and get some guys up to speed and get the rest of our depth in a showman's way.
Have you gotten your medical degree yet?
I do not have a medical degree, not yet.
So there goes the follow-up question.
I just have medical experience, ACL, MCL, PCL. I know how to say all those words. Medial meniscus, torn labrum. I know how to say all that because I've seen them all. I guess lastly, I just want to really compliment Brendan Garcia, Big Sky Kick Team's Player of the Week. That's a cool thing to say. Brendan Garcia, Big Sky Kick Team's Player of the Week. Because when he was 5 of 13 last year, he spent the entire winter off-season, spring and summer, and 2-a-day camp in question whether he was going to be our kicker or not. So I'm very proud of the fact that the young man, as a senior, finally has that marquee game that should make him calm and confident for the rest of the season. And of course, he didn't do any of it by himself. Christian Deem really had a great day snapping it. And our punt returner, who's also our punter, also had a great day holding. And C.J. Reyes, otherwise known as Slash, will be a big part of our game plan this week in a variety of positions.
Uh-oh.
Coach, can I have one more question?
I got one more too. So
There's been a lot of upsets with teams below in the lower division beating upper teams. Specifically last week, Northern Colorado lost. What do you guys do to avoid that, to not look forward, to avoid that sort of
And
upset?
remember, I'm the author of a couple of those in years past in my career, so I'm ready to go. I mean, I woke up on Sunday absolutely fearful that we couldn't repeat it again next week. And my history is that I don't repeat it. I mean, I've been beat by Central Washington when I was at Montana State. We got beat by Chadron State at Montana State. You know, these Division II teams can get after you if you're really not careful and not prepared to play a full game. So, again, regardless of who we're going to play, we're constructing drawers this week in our dresser. And we have got to make sure that we don't look away from the prize and saw our finger off on the table saw. So there's a similarity to what we're doing this week, and part of it has to be razor focused that this is week 2 of a 12-week process, not a game against Western State.
that feeds right into my last question. Trap game with Washington looming next week.
We play who after this game?
UW. Washington.
God, I don't even know.
There you go.
Hey, Coach. Just speaking of your medical degree and stuff, we were just talking to one of the professors here on campus who's doing some research into field turf, and I was just kind of curious about your experience. Have you noticed less injuries on the field turf than on grass or other surfaces?
Any comment I'd make on that would be absolutely unscientific. But I would say it's better than our old turf in terms of how our players feel about it. No one's ever really asked me that question like that. Would I prefer to play on natural grass? Yes, if I had a bigger budget and the lines on the field were always straight and perfect like they are whenever you play on a Hellas turf facility. It feels better than it did in the old turf. Certainly doesn't ever feel like real grass. And maybe there's no substitution for real grass, but you know, we move on, and now, you know, a lot of people watch their TV on a computer, so there's no substitution for real TV too sometimes.